Maybe. Back to First Take.
Oh, it ain't Southern California. Thank you, Antonietta. LiAngelo LaMelo Ball heading to Lithuania on a one-year deal, according to our Jeff Goodman, Adrian Wojnarowski, and Jonathan Gavoni. Max?
Yep.
Good or bad move?
It's a good move. If I'm forced between good and bad, it's a good move. Look, it's not China. Lithuania is a democracy, is improving on human rights, is a part of the EU, the European Union, and NATO. This is not China or some other place that whose human rights record is really such that you shouldn't be playing there if you're. I don't think you should be there if you're American, or certainly not expect to be treated under the law like you would in a Western-style democracy. It's economically free, all those places. So that's my first concern: is that a safe place to send your kids? If I'm LeVar Ball, do I feel comfortable with my kids being there? It's not. I could think of some better spots, but it's also not the worst. That's number one. Number two, what about the whole issue of taking your kids out of school, right? Like, what about that? Well, it is pretty clear that the Ball family views college not as an institution of higher learning where you then become a fully formed human being, or more fully formed human being, but as a place to play basketball. I think that's fair to say. And that's okay. They don't have to view college the way, for example, I or others view college. We can have different ideas about why you should go and the utility of it. But if that's the way they view it, and it's not really about the education, then they'll probably get at least as much playing in basketball experience playing in Lithuania. And incidentally, you also get exposed to other parts of the world. I mean, there is some kind of like secular education that goes on with players who play internationally. You know, it's one of the reasons I think that, for example, Stephen A. Kobe Bryant was, as young as he was when he got to the league, as many mistakes as I think he made, he was a relatively sophisticated guy for his age and remains so. And that's because I think he lived abroad and saw some of the world. So I think given all of that, if I'm forced to say good or bad move, I'd say by the Ball family kind of standards, what they're trying to accomplish, it's a good one.
Well, I'm not going to say it's a good move. It could end up being a good move, but for the immediacy of the moment, I'm going to say I don't like the move at all. And the reason why is because of what precedes the move, not the actual move itself. If you've decided that, you know what, you're just not ready. The NCAA, you're tired of them being the crooks that some people believe they are, constantly getting over by exploiting the modern day collegiate athlete, pretending to be an amateuristic sport where clearly it ain't one for them. And that level of frustration brews to such a degree that you just can't see yourself being under its umbrella, then it makes sense. The problem is we have LeVar Ball here. We have the big baller brand here. We have a 16-year-old that you pulled out of high school after complaining about his coach and talking about how you were going to train him. Then you pulled your son out of college because you didn't like how they were treating him after he committed a crime and created an international incident with the robbery issue in China. So you have a son you pulled out of high school. You have a son you pulled out of college, and even though it's not of their doing, it's of the dad's doing, but one's going to be labeled a high school dropout, the other's going to be labeled a college dropout. You're going to another country, and what precedes you is your reputation. The bravado, doing things your way, not answering to anybody, etc., etc. It doesn't work that way in societies away from America. And that's what my concern is. And to expose your kids at that age to such, I don't want to say controversial, but I guess that's the word that comes to my mind right now. Such controversial circumstances, such precarious circumstances. I just don't like how it feels. It could end up working very, very well for them. It could end up being a brilliant move because what you ultimately will learn over there, excuse me, is more than you will have learned in high school, Max, or more than you would have learned at UCLA. Maybe. It could end up working out well for you. But in terms of the optics of the situation and thrusting these two young men into this particular situation for the sole express purpose that you didn't like the way things were working out for you here, that is the part that makes me very uncomfortable and lends itself towards me believing this is not going to work out for them. But I hope and pray that I'm wrong because I'm rooting for all of their kids, including Lonzo, and I happen to like LeVar. I just don't agree with him here.
Sounds like we have the same concerns. One, are the kids safe? Wherever you're going to send your kids, is it safe? And as I mentioned, I could think of places I would rather send them than Lithuania, but Lithuania, by and large, it's okay. You know, you're not sending them to communist China when you send them to Lithuania. You know, the biggest threat is probably if there's a Russian invasion. That's what you have to worry about, more than like human rights or their rights being infringed upon by the government in a way that would seem alien to Americans. And in terms of the experience, Stephen A., and what they would learn, it's a trade-off. You could go to UCLA and really not go to class or not care much about it and just play basketball. You get something out of that too. You're socialized in a different way. If you're not completely isolated from the rest of the student body, you're maybe not on your own because you're still in you're still in your hometown and all that stuff. But it is a new experience you haven't yet had. In terms of becoming more mature and more worldly, probably spending a year abroad as they're learning basketball, if the idea is that they wouldn't really be going to class anywhere or caring much about it, I would imagine is at least as good an education, maybe a different kind of education, but certainly you think you become a more interesting person having that experience than not having had that experience. So then it boils down to me, is it okay to send them there? Yeah, I suppose. I suppose Lithuania just crosses that threshold for me. Okay, fine, go play in Lithuania for a year.
Just a little different than California. By the way, guys, the Lithuanian team that signed the Ball brothers is currently in last place in the Lithuanian league. It's